All right. Hello, everybody. Let's see who's coming in.
Hello.
All right, guys, if you're live joining us, make sure you say hello. And make sure we are streaming. Mark over here, too. Oh, there we go. Kaylin's here. Hey, Kaylin. Laura's here. Hi, Laura. It won't tell me who all's here, so you have to say hi. It's the funny thing about StreamYard. We're going to let everybody kind of jump on. Yay! A bunch of you guys are coming in.
I guess that's the nice thing about the nice and the bad thing about having multiple platforms you can stream to at one time. It's kind of hard to aggregate everybody who can possibly be on.
It is. It's very difficult sometimes. Good and bad, like you say. Very good and bad. Good and bad. We are streaming on YouTube and into the group, and everybody is live as well. So awesome. Yay! Good morning. Tell me where you're from. Carol told me she's from Southern Cal. I don't know why I said South Cal. You guys don't follow that.
I was gonna say, South Carolina, and then it's like, oh no, SoCal. It's like,
SoCal.
It's okay. I still like you.
Yes, we do. We're Easterners over here. So, There's another North Carolina, Mark.
Oh, there we go.
Awesome. Also, Mark would love to know if you're already using RightTool, and what is your favorite thing about it? And I say, Mark, really, I want to know, but I'm just curious.
Honestly, I like to know too, because everybody seems to have a different one, which makes my job harder sometimes. Because sometimes when people are asking, what's like the top 3 things RightTool can do, and I'm like, I mean, technically speaking, everybody I talk to says that their favorite thing is different, and it can sometimes be something super complicated, and sometimes it's like the simplest thing you ever saw in your life.
The simplest thing. Yep, I'm with you on that. Yes. So what is your favorite thing that RightTool can do? What is the time saver? Because there's so many. If you're not using it, you're going to use it after this webinar. That I can tell you. Ooh, Samantha says, so many auto update bank feed, different colors in the bank feed, and reconciliation search.
Okay, fair enough. You know what? I'm actually impressed on that one a little bit, just because of the fact I think that's the first time that I've heard about the color and bank feed one was pretty cool. If nothing else, I just like it. It just looks nice.
Yes, I love that, guys. Yeah. Bulk delete on a lot of cleanups. Amen to that one. Yes. Copying and pasting into journal entries.
I will say bulk delete is probably, if I was to give something like the thing that most people like, I will say bulk delete is probably like the number one feature that we hear about. Journal entry import could easily, the problem with journal entry import is that it's something that people either never use or they use all the time. And so for some people, it's just like, it's so much like far and above their favorite feature. And then for other people, they just don't care at all.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah. Well, and it does. RightTool does so much that, no one utilizes, I'm sure, everything that it does, but it really depends on like your market and who your ideal client is, like that type of thing.
So. Exactly. Just the same way that I say, like, nobody uses every feature of QuickBooks Online or every page in QuickBooks Online. You're probably not going to use every feature in RightTool, even if you did have infinite knowledge of it. Heck, even I forget some of the things I put into here sometimes.
Google search, bulk upload and bank feed, and many more. Still learning RightTool. Absolutely. Well, we're going to dive in, Mark, if you're good with that. So happy to have Mark here with us from RightTool today to give us a demo, some behind the scenes, hopefully some tips and tricks that maybe I didn't even know about RightTool. That would be awesome as well. So if you're joining, just make sure you're telling us where you're from and what you like most about RightTool. So Mark, again, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm just going to let you take it from here.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Stephanie. I really do appreciate being invited, and I hope everybody's having a good day back from Memorial Day. So, yeah, it's great to see everybody. So yeah, just to get started, I guess we could. Well, first of all, let me say what RightTool is. RightTool is the way I like to put it is two applications for QuickBooks Online wrapped into one. So there's a function where it puts a sidebar on the right side of your screen that's kind of like what Hector Garcia, his like ideal version of QuickBooks's sidebar would be. So that's kind of the first part of it. It has a whole bunch of functionality there. And then it's a second app insofar as that it adds functionality directly into QuickBooks Online for you that just does anything from making something take one less click to do to, automating an entire process that, would take you, 30 minutes to do otherwise. So, just kind of things like that is how I would describe what RightTool does in a nutshell. But yeah, now I can just get straight into it by sharing the screen.
Sure, absolutely. And if y'all have any questions as Mark goes through this, pop them in the comments and I'll be watching them as Mark goes.
Yeah. So the first thing you can do is if you haven't heard or if you don't know about RightTool, it is a Chrome extension. So you can get it for absolutely free. There's no sign up or anything required for a free version. We have a free and a pro. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But you can get started right away just by going to righttool.app/free. That'll take you to the Chrome Web Store. You can also just search for it inside of Chrome Web Store, but whichever one you want to do first. And you can just click add to Chrome. I use Brave, so I'm going to say add to Brave. It'll do this whole thing. And then once it is done doing that whole thing, it has like a little privacy thing if you want to look at that. We don't store any data. That's one of the nicer things about not having an API, like a normal QuickBooks application. We don't have to store any data for you. So it's kind of nice from a security standpoint on that. And then what you'll notice is once you've added that, the next time you either log into QuickBooks Online or you refresh the page for QuickBooks, you'll notice that the left sidebar goes away. You can still bring it up just by doing this. And you'll have a right sidebar right there ready to go with some things set up for you. One thing to keep in mind with this is that for most people, it takes about a week of using it before and you have to use it pretty much exclusively for about a week. And then you're like, oh my God, I love it. It's great. But for some reason during that week, your brain's going to be like, I am not fully there yet on the right side toolbar. So just be aware. It is a known, it's a known phenomenon at this point that it takes a week. It's literally 7 days. So getting into that right side toolbar, it has everything that you need from the left side just over here on the right. So you still have that plus new icon, which is like the one thing that I really love from the left side. So you can come over here and you can you can do your invoices, expenses, etc. Easily with a click of a button there. Then it has a icon just to open up QuickBooks' settings. And then finally, of the important things on this little top part, there is this button that looks like a wrench and a screwdriver, and that opens up RightTool settings. And there are a lot of them, but don't let that freak you out. Our goal with RightTool is to make it so it enhances the QuickBooks experience without ever making it so that you feel like you're worse inside of QuickBooks. And part of that is, let's say that we put a button somewhere that you don't appreciate. We just wanted to give you the opportunity to turn it on and off as you so desire. So that's just all that's doing. Don't worry about that if you're just getting started with RightTool, because everything that should be like a guaranteed win is already turned on for you. And then after that, we get into the sidebar of what's actually going on. As you can see over here, we have a couple of things already in this sidebar, like the bank feed, the bank register, all this stuff. But this is completely customizable. So let's say that you're like, well, I never go to the item list. You can go ahead and you can remove that just by clicking on the little star icon next to it. And accountant home is something people usually get rid of. You can click on that. And you can see that your favorites get changed in real time. And then if you ever wanted to add something to your favorites, so the way I usually do it is, let's say you want to go to a report that has all of your most recent journal entries. You might realize in QuickBooks Online, there is no good report for that. So what I do is I actually just type in the keyword I'm looking for into this search bar. So I just type in journal. And one of the things here is search recent journal entries. And what's cool about that is that it will take you to a custom built URL from Hector Garcia. Like he made this URL, or at least discovered it, I should say. And it takes you straight to here, and you can see literally all the journal entries in like the date that they were made and date they were last modified, I should say, which is really cool. And let's say I use this all the time. I can actually click on this little star icon over here, and bam, it adds it to my favorites. And now it's there at the bottom, search recent journal entries. So I don't have to like search for it every single time I want to find that specific page. And I can even drag and drop it to wherever spot I want. So I say that's my second favorite page. Just drop it to there and I'm good to go. One final thing about this, and then we'll move on to some of the more like cool, like in the actual, page features, is that a little hidden feature of this that people oftentimes don't know about is that you can press Control Alt and then a number, and it will actually open a number that corresponds with this little thing on the right side. So like, for instance, profit and loss right here is number 5 on my favorites. So I can press Control Alt 5 and it just takes me straight to the profit and loss. So just kind of a nifty little feature there that, a lot of people aren't aware of. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. Now I know I went through that part like blazing fast. So I usually do. So I understand if anybody has any like statements, questions, or like, oh yeah, can you please repeat something? So if
there is one question, Mark.
Yeah.
Brianna wants to know if RightTool is available in Microsoft Web Store because she can't find it there.
It is not available in Microsoft Web Store, but you should be able to get it in the Chrome Web Store. It's just that it'll have, let's actually go to that real quick. RightTool, pretend I can spell, .app/free. So it will take you to the Chrome Web Store. At the top, instead of saying add to Microsoft Edge or something like that, there's going to be a banner at the top that says, oh, do you want to enable the ability to download from other stores? And then you can be like, if you click yes on that, then you'll be able to add it from the Chrome Web Store. Hopefully that makes sense.
Awesome.
But yeah.
Thanks, Mark. Brian, if you have any questions, just pop them in the comments.
Yeah, for sure. With that being said, this actually was not intended in terms of when I was going through what I was doing, but this goes to one of my favorite free features. So right now, if you can see, there's the little ad in the corner there. That's pretty much the dead giveaway that you're currently using the free version of RightTool, is that you have the ad in the corner. It also says free at the top right side of the toolbar as well. So one of those two ways you can tell. But yeah, so we are already into what is going to be one of my favorite parts of free, which is if you're inside of a report, oftentimes you want to click into a report, but you don't want to necessarily lose your spot in it. And so what RightTool does the moment you turn it on is it actually makes it so that all of these links right here are something that will open in a new tab. So inside of here, I say, oh, I want to see what's inside of income parent 1. I click on it, it automatically opens it in a new tab for me, and I don't lose my spot in the old profit and loss. I can still be everywhere I need to be inside of here. And then I go into this and I can just kind of go about my day, and I can be like, okay, I'm going to do this. And let's say that I see this sales receipt for Tracy Evangelista. I can go into that. It again opens it in a new tab so that I have everything I need over here. And what's really cool about this is, let's say that I come over here and I delete this because it is a sample file, so I can delete stuff with no real problems. And it will come back into that report, and it will even highlight where it was that you were at in the report for you, just to make sure that you don't lose your spot. So it's just like a lot of really cool things that makes it so that when you're doing any kind of report-based editing, or just looking at reports in general, you have a little bit more of a easy workflow to go on from there. One final thing about that's kind of cool to note is that while it's by default, if you just click on a link inside of a report, it will open in a new tab. You can actually go in to RightTool, and you can go to RightTool settings, I should say. So again, the wrench and screwdriver icon, and go to tab management. And if you're like, I absolutely hate when this happens inside the reports, like I said, we like to make it so anything that you don't like, you can turn off in some way, shape, or form. Now, admittedly, part of that is knowing what you need to know to turn off. But if you ever really have a problem with that, you can always ask either me or like we have a Facebook group that people ask questions in quite frequently. So I'm happy to answer that there. But here it's reports enhanced drill down. So if I turn that off and then I refresh the page, it will begin to work basically the same that it worked before, where if you click it, it opens it up in the same tab. But it also has a hidden enhancement that makes it so you can choose to right click and open it in a new tab if you so desire. So it still gives you that option, whereas without RightTool, you would not have any way whatsoever of opening that link into a new tab unless you like duplicated the tab and did a whole bunch of random stuff and just to make it work. So again, one of my favorite particular features, you distribution account thing. Yeah. Now, just to make sure that, and then another thing here inside the reports, because we have a couple of things in reports that are actually quite nice little features. We have this little sub rows button, make it so if you ever want to see like a report and you want it to be like all these little arrows to be closed up, you can just click it one time, it closes those arrows. And if you want to see a really condensed version of the report, you can click the sub rows button again, and it just makes it so you don't have to go and individually click every little sub arrow inside of the report to get it condensed, which is pretty nice at times. That's more of a Hector thing than a me thing, to be quite clear. But we and Hector like to keep score of which features we personally put in that we like kind of had the idea for, and which one's better. Admittedly, I think Hector does win on that one, if I'm being honest. But you know what? That's okay. One day I'll kind of overtake him on that. But yeah. And then another thing in the free version, and I'm just going to go over some of the like really cool free version stuff to be clear. Another thing in the free version that's really nice that is very seldom, I think, known about is the fact that if you go into a bank feed, you can actually put inside of like a name for a bank account, you can put something inside of parentheses, and we will actually read that out and put it as a like red text inside the card for that bank. And what's cool about that is if you can see here, maybe the 1250 BOA bank account is a bad example of this. Let's see if we can find one that's a better example, or maybe we're just going to accept it. Okay, yeah, this one's actually a good example. Bank of America Premium Checking. You can see here that it has like the word Mike in there, which means that somewhere in this name, we have Mike in parentheses. So it, instead of having to like constantly go like, okay, wait a minute, what is this account number or anything like that? You can just go into, you can see it from right here. So if there's like special information you need to know, it's just immediately available to you. One final side note of that is if you're using QuickBooks Payroll, I believe, if you change the account name, make sure you change the account name in QuickBooks Payroll as well, or else QuickBooks will be like, oh, we're not matching by the ID of the account. We're matching by the name. And so it will create another bank account in QuickBooks Online for you. It's not a big deal. It's just something to be aware of. But yeah. And then one final thing you'll see kind of in here for me to bring up. Actually, not even one final thing. It's a couple of things. One, you can see red text underneath these descriptions inside of the bank feed. In this case, it's not, this one's a little bit better of an example. Apple, in this case, QuickBooks did a pretty good job of guessing what the description is going to be. But what it does is it actually tells you what the bank description is, as well as what the QuickBooks guess is. So it makes it so you don't have to, you can look at it without having to like go, okay, now wait a minute, this is what QuickBooks is saying, but is it possible it's being wrong? You can like check that on the fly without having to open up every single transaction. So it's kind of a nice thing to be able to do. And then one final thing I'll put out while we're inside of this page is the fact that what you can do is one of people's favorite features, and it is a free feature. And it's a very simple thing, but you can click on this little thing right here that says Google Memo, and it will open up just immediately for you based on whatever's in the bank detail or the memo, whatever it is in a small little window so that you can have it just easily available. You can see what something is. And then when you're done, you can just close out of it. And it's just super easy, convenient to do. And one thing that's kind of cool about that as well is if you're like, oh, I want to Google this, but, and I don't have any good examples in here, it seems, of this. But what you can do is if you're like, I don't want to put this in star Aqua Row Services LLC, you can just put in Aqua, you can just highlight Aqua Row Services and then Google Memo, and it will only search for the part that you're actually highlighting there. So it makes it so it's just a little bit easier to kind of get everything Googled without having to kind of open up a new tab and do all that fun stuff. But yeah, and I would show you one more thing that's in the free version that I would love to show, but we are actually currently workshopping it because QuickBooks is now putting in the new journal entry page. And so we have to, you know, have a little bit of fun working on that update because, like I said, we're basically just a overlay on top of QuickBooks Online. We don't have any like connection to them, to the development team or anything like that. So we are just whatever QuickBooks puts out for us, we can work on top of it. But sometimes we do have to kind of fix things around in order to work with that. So just something to be aware of with that. Yeah.
These are awesome, Mark.
Well, thank you. And again, I know me and Hector are two very opposite people. Hector will go for 20 minutes speaking about one feature where I can go on 20 features in 20 minutes. So if I realize for some people, they appreciate it when you go slower rather than faster. So if somebody is like, oh, wait a minute, can you like go back over one thing or another? Feel free to let me know. And yeah. One more thing, just as like before I kind of move on to some of the like pro features, and I'm going to turn them back on, report enhanced drill down because I love that. It is one of my personal favorite features, which I know is kind of funny, but one more final thing is that when you are inside of the RightTool settings area, if you're ever wondering, oh, what does this thing do? Like reports enhanced drill down can sometimes be like a little bit less informative than you'd like it to be. We have a little eye icon next to every one of these features, and it will give you a quick little blurb about what it does, as well as a video by either Hector or myself that kind of goes through and explains what that feature is intending to do. So just something to be aware of. Like if you're ever wondering, oh, what does this feature do? We will always have some kind of video next to it to kind of give you a little bit of guidance on that.
Love it. And I agree with you too on that, Mark. Like I wouldn't even play around in the settings until you've used it for a little while, because you guys have it set up where those are the things that you want to see, like in the beginning, you know, like
yeah,
to get a full taste of what RightTool's about, like go with it the way it's originally set up.
Yeah. Now there are some things where I'm like, man, I wish I could put this on by default, but it's a little too dangerous to do that. And so we do sometimes avoid that. But I think for the most part, you will get your money's worth out of it if you just get even just straight from the get-go. You don't even worry about the settings necessarily. I guarantee you'll probably get your money's worth out of it, which is free, to be clear.
Yeah, exactly. It's free.
So yeah. And one more thing on that note is, we have a pro version and a free version. I do not recommend somebody gets RightTool and immediately goes from the pro version. It's just not something that I particularly want to like wish upon people, just because, you got to try it out first and see, what does and doesn't work for you. And some people don't like RightTool. I'm just going to say it. Some people aren't going to like it just because it is different and it does add a bunch of stuff to the screen. So it's okay not to like it. Just want to make sure you like it first before you start investing, into the pro version. So just something to be putting in mind there. But yes, we do have a whole bunch of things inside of here that like I could go for an entire 3-hour webinar talking about all the free features if I wanted to go one by one. One person did say that they like the bank feed color thing, so I will turn that on inside. And this is again in the free version. So I will put that on just so you can see it, because it is, I don't know, it's fun for me anyways. I don't know if it's actually like I don't know how useful it is to everybody in their day-to-day life, but it is fun if nothing else. But you can see now, like when you have a rule, it's going to be like the blue color. If you have a match, I think matches are green or something like that. I have to find it, unfortunately, in order to be able to tell you that, but it just changes the colors based on what type of match it is. So if it's a rule, it's blue. If it's a match, it's green. If it's a transfer, I think it's red or something like that.
The colors do make a difference.
Yeah. So it's like you don't have to like read every individual thing in order to know like what type of thing it is. Because sometimes it's QuickBooks going like, oh, here's like our like really educated guess. And some people are okay with that, but some people are like, no, QuickBooks, don't ever educated guess me.
That's me. I'm in that category. Don't do that. Mm-mm.
Yeah. So yeah. And again, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's like a massive, like, oh my God, I have to show it to you right now, or else it's going to be like, you have to see what this is like. You know what? I will show one more thing, only because of the fact that it is, it's my baby, not necessarily everybody, and not necessarily Hector's, but it is my baby. So I do want to show it just real quick. Actually, it's two things I can show off in the same time. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to a sales receipt that already exists, and I'm going to come over here. And one thing that really like frustrated me when I was in my bookkeeping days was that I would come over here and I would be like, oh, I need to change the product and service, but I actually like what all the, description, quantity, rate, and all that stuff is. So I'd have to like make a new line and copy everything over and then change the old line. What we do with RightTool is we actually create a little locking button right here. And what you do once you do that is now you can change this product or service to anything you want. So let's say I change it to package A, and it'll keep the quantity, rate, and description the same without doing that thing where it overwrites everything on you, which is just, for me in particular, I just like doing it that way. So just something to keep in mind there.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And then the other thing is that there is this audit history button. Sometimes people get like caught in this loop where you click the audit history and you can't go back because like it will literally, every time you press the X button, it'll just go back to the audit history and so on and so forth. We just had a simple solution to this particular problem. We just open the audit history into a separate tab. And so now you don't have to worry about like pressing X and, you get to go back to what you were doing.
Yay.
So again, that's kind of the general idea behind free features, by the way, is that like they're not necessarily going to be something that automates a task for you, but it will make it so that like there's little tiny frustrations inside of QuickBooks Online that we kind of just smooth the experience out for you just a little bit. So yeah,
absolutely.
Wow. Now that we have that, Stephanie, if you want to ask if there's any questions or anybody who has any statements or anything, feel free, because I'm going to now log into the pro version so we can see a little bit more about what goes on there.
Yeah, you've got a lot of positive feedback, features that they didn't know existed. So they were really happy about that. And then you have one question. Do you have any training videos? And I know the answer is yes there, but Mark, can you tell us where they can find these?
Yeah. So the training videos are, and let me pull this up in a separate tab here. They are on RightTool's YouTube channel, basically. So you can see all these feature video tutorials right here. These are all coming over from YouTube itself. This is the best place to pretty much get updates or anything for RightTool, just because every time we put out a new feature, we always put out like a video to go along with it. So it's also the best way to keep up with new releases. But inside of here, we have what I have is 3 different videos that I do need to update, literally all 3 of them, but that's okay. That's a thing for a separate day. But they're still good for hitting the ground. Which is going to be this part right here. The free version just tells you like what's going on, like how do you fix the settings and all that stuff. And as well as like some of the settings that might be more important when you're getting started, just because some people might have different opinions on that. Then we have popular free features, and then we have popular pro features. Now, again, this is from 10 months ago, so it needs to be updated a little bit.
Mark, I think you're looking at a screen that we cannot see.
Oh, interesting.
Sorry.
No, you are perfectly fine. It is not your fault. I just did not realize that that's how that went. Okay, fair enough. Okay.
There we go.
Yeah, here we go. Sorry, I thought I was sharing a window, but apparently I was sharing a screen. Fair enough. But yeah, no, inside of here we have, you have your most recent videos. If you click on videos, it'll show you the most recent things like the customer notes shortcut and all that stuff. But if you go to the on the homepage right there, there's a getting started series of videos that can help you out. So I think that's a good enough thing to get you started. And then once you get past that, it's admittedly, there's some stuff to kind of learn for sure. There's a learning curve, and we will probably work on that in the future as well. Just a lot to get through.
There's a lot of features for sure. Yeah, for sure.
But the goal is hopefully, and the goal is hopefully that you find, at least 2 or 3 features that are really massively helpful to you. It's not necessarily like our goal to make it so every feature in RightTool Pro you use all the time, because it's just never going to happen. So, just something to be aware of. Is that and again, the best way to find out about new features is by just kind of subscribing to it. I'm not saying that to kind of plug the YouTube channel necessarily. It just is as luck would have it, it just turned out that the YouTube channel is the best place to get update notes. So yeah, just something to be aware of there.
Love it.
Yeah. So what you can, you might have seen me do is I logged into RightToolPro.com, which RightTool Pro is $50 a month for the first user and $15 for each additional user. And that is no matter how many companies you have. So if you're working in 3 companies, that might be a little expensive. If you're working in 20 companies, that's going to be pretty cheap. So it kind of comes down to that way of doing it. And that's because of the fact that it's a Corum extension. We don't want to have to connect to every single account that you have in order to make it so it gives you pro features or not. So that's why we kind of have it set up that way. But once I do that, I can refresh the QuickBooks Online and I can refresh RightTool's options. And you will immediately notice, once the RightTool sidebar comes in, is that there is no longer the ad at the bottom. There's a couple of extra things here as well, but that's how you can kind of tell for sure that you're no longer in the free version and you have the pro version. And then once that opens up, you'll notice there's a little there's like a little dividing line on the left side here where all the rule areas are at, or setting areas are at. Anything below this line is a pro feature, and we put pro next to it just to kind of make it clear that it's a pro feature area. And so you can see you get a whole bunch of stuff enabled in this area as well, which is going to be really cool. And I'm going to go over the 2 things. And if you have anything you particularly want me to do, Stephanie, or if you want me to take a breath and be like, okay, cool down for a second, I am more than happy to.
Yes, you can totally do that, Mark. Take a breath, get some water. Who is using Pro currently? I'm curious. And is there anything, if you are using Pro, that you have questions about, or is there something that you're curious that Pro has to make you upgrade to Pro? Just curious. So if you have that, post that in the comments. But I love that you're going through it really quickly, Mark. So I'm all about that for sure. Samantha says she's using Pro. Samantha, what makes you use Pro versus the free version? I'm just curious. I know, Kaylin, you're using Pro for the journal entry aspect. I know she loves that and said that it has saved her hours and hours and hours time, for sure. Would you say, Mark, there is one feature that makes people jump from free to Pro, over something else?
Yeah, I mean, kind of to go into the idea that I was talking about kind of earlier in the webinar, there's really 2 things that more often than not cause people to jump over, and that's going to be batch deleting, especially for people who are doing QuickBooks desktop conversions. It's a massive thing for them, batch deleting and batch editing, to be clear. And then the other one that's like I've noticed is like the reason people swap over to Pro is going to be that journal entry import. A lot of people are like, yeah, the free version was great, but that journal entry import, that's where I was like, I really needed that for those like larger journal entries. So yeah, that is definitely
Absolutely.
where I've seen the most of that. Now, that being said, we still have a bunch of other things that people do like appreciate as add-ons. And one of them, I'm going to actually go into some of these experimental Pro features, because this is where we put like our cool features that like we really love, but we're also like, we don't necessarily want this to be something where people just go like, oh, I'm going to click a button, and then they go freaking out because of the fact that they clicked the button and now the screen looks different than they were expecting it to. So just I want to go into some of those because I think those are kind of some of the more fun.
I like the cool features for sure. Yes. Samantha also said she likes the reconciliation search because sometimes I have 10-page bank statements and it saves me so much time.
Yeah.
Also, bank fee auto update.
That's fun. I love the fact that she likes the bank feed auto update, because for me, the bank feed auto update stresses me out, but for some people it's like, oh yeah, I love it. So you know what? I am more than happy to hear that somebody likes that feature. Because there are people I've heard who say that's like one of their favorite features. I'm like, oh my God, thank the Lord. Because for me, it stresses me out. Both because I was the one working on it, and because of the fact that, I just have a different, my brain is weird. So it just kind of, sometimes they'll be like, no. So yeah, no, I appreciate it though. With that being said, I will go ahead and show, I'll show all three of the features that people have brought up just to kind of give you an idea of what these will look like. First, I'll start off with the batch edit and the batch delete, because I like the batch edit and batch delete. So what I'm going to do inside of here is I'm going to come over here, and you'll notice once you have RightTool Pro, you don't have to turn anything on or anything once you have RightTool Pro, that once you go to a bank register, you will see that there's a batch button right here, and it will have three options, technically speaking. It's technically two options, but select all is there as well. And what this will do is you can come over here and let's say I want to select everything on this page. Let's not do that. But let's say I want to ruin Hector's file for a minute here. I'm like, okay, we have all these like duplicated journal entries going on here from when Mark was testing something and it's bad. So I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to click on the first box, and then I'm going to hold the shift button and click on this last box. And so this is kind of like a shortcut you can do, is by holding the shift button, it'll click it. So you don't have to go like, oh, let me click each one of these checkboxes one by one. And then I'm going to go, okay, yeah, let's delete some of these duplicate journal entries real quick. Press delete. It'll tell you, oh, this is how much you're going to be deleting and all that stuff. And it'll be like, it'll be absolutely sure you want to delete. Because, it's one of the more dangerous things you can do. Another reason we put it in Pro actually is because of the fact that it's one of the more dangerous things you can do. And you can see it was pretty quick about it. Quicker than I think it should have been, but maybe that's me being crazy. Even I get surprised sometimes. But anyways, and you can see it just deleted the transactions pretty quick. It's like super fast. It makes it so instead of having to go there and click one by one by one, you can get it done pretty quickly. Now, the other part of that is the batch edit feature. Now, this is more of what people talk about when they say, oh, I brought something over from QuickBooks Desktop, is that a lot of times you'll have these reconciled lines inside of here. And it's something where you don't want it to be reconciled the way that QuickBooks necessarily reconciled it. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select a bunch of these things right here, and I'm going to click edit. And you get to basically edit any number of these things in batch. The source account only being the weird, what's the word? The weird exception to this rule, because when you're editing the source account, you can only edit the source account. And people sometimes ask, what does that mean? It means that, like, let's say right now, this is inside of the Bank of America checking account. If I wanted to put something into undeposited funds, for instance, so move it from one bank account to another bank account, I could use that source account only, and that would let you move from one type of bank account to another. But let's say for this, I want to, change the memo for these things, and I want to change the class, and I want to change the reconcile status. I can click all three of those things and click close. And you'll see that now there is like a black highlighted thing here for the things that you chose. So for the memo, I'm going to be like unreconciled. Oh God, I don't know if I can spell that right. By Mark. Class, we can add, some kind of random class into here, loan class 7, sure. And let's say instead of reconciled, we want it to be cleared. I don't know why you would want to do that necessarily, but just to show that you can do, actually, you know what? No, let's just make it unreconciled altogether. So I'm going to press confirm batch. It'll give you the warnings, and then it will literally go through one by one on everything you've selected. It'll change the memo. It'll change the class. If you can change the class, to be clear, sometimes you can't. Like right here, the transfer, you can't change a class on transfer. But now you can see that they're no longer R's over here. They're just they have the blank reconcile status, which is, again, very nice. It's not something you necessarily do frequently, but when you do a QuickBooks desktop conversion or something like that, or if your client went in and they were like, oh, I'm going to go and manually click R on all of these things so that my reconciled thing shows up correctly. You can fix that.
It has happened. Yes.
I'm aware. I know some people who did it, which is funny. You know what? I'm not even going to get into it. But yeah, no, it's just a very nice thing to be able to have from there. One next part of this, and let's see if I can actually do a good job of demonstrating this feature, because admittedly, okay, fair enough. Get started. Calm down, QuickBooks. Anyways, I will see if we have any good examples of this to show. QuickBooks. You have to show me all that stuff. Okay, so yeah, inside of here, and this is again probably a bad example, but let's say that you were looking for a very specific dollar amount or something inside of here. Instead of doing like Control F or anything like that, where you're like, oh yeah, I need to find this inside of here. You can do inside of this search box right here. I could do 2.75. And it will actually go through the list for you and find that amount, and then it will highlight it. And if you have multiple transactions with it, you can just say find next amount again, and it'll keep going through and cycling through the different things where that would be working for you. So let's actually use a better example, like 100. Here we go to 100, and it will eventually be weird, I guess, because of the fact that it's such a short list. It's being a little bit weird about it, which is something I will work on. But yeah,
I
just
love
very
that
nice.
feature.
Yeah, if you ever need to find something, and if there is something, another cool thing about this is if there's something you would expect to find in here, but you're not seeing in here, you can click up here on like this part right here that says plus expense, or you can go down here and you click plus sales deposit, plus check, plus journal, any of that stuff. And what it will do is it will open up a new tab for you that automatically fills in the date that you currently are working on inside of the reconciliation. And it will also add the bank account into there somewhere in here. The bank account there it is. Undeposit. Okay, fair enough. It wants to not be working for us right now for that. And that's just okay. That's how life goes sometimes. QuickBooks wants to drive me nuts, and I can only accept that.
Yes. It does us every day. All good, Mark. We understand it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the final thing that people have explicitly brought up as things that they like is going to be the pasting from Excel. So I'm going to into a journal entry. And by the way, if you have the new version of a transaction, you can actually do this inside of any transaction now, but only if you have like the new updated version. And you can tell if you do, if one, it's a little bit boxier looking. And two, if you have the little feedback button at the top corner there. If you have that feedback button, it means that you're in a new version of a page. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to export this journal entry to Excel because of the fact that I am, or to CSV, I should say, because of the fact that I do not remember if I have any good files for this or not. And then once I am in here, you probably can't see my screen of my Excel. So I'm just going to go ahead and just let you know that I am copying. Let's see here. 1 second. Maybe I can, let me see here. I'm going to stop screen for a second and share screen. Let's see if I can get it to show the actual, there we go. Yeah, I think that's going to be better. Let's see this one, share. There we go. Now you can probably see my Excel.
We can.
Yeah. So inside of here, this is what like we got exported by the export to CSV. Now what I can do is I can copy everything except for the header. And I'm going to create a new journal entry to be clear. Oh, QuickBooks. You like to drive me a little nuts, and that's okay. Paste from, and then what I can do is I can quick paste from Excel. And it might not be a big deal when you have a journal entry that's, you know, this particular size, but when you get to the point where you're having like more than 50 things, or actually more than 20 things, really, you start to kind of really feel the effects of having to do it one by one. So I'm just going to literally paste into this little box right here. And there you go. You can literally, it gives you like a little table that tells you, oh yeah, is everything correct? Because what could happen is, you know, maybe I put in A, B inside of here. And it's like, okay, we can see a lot of names here that aren't exactly AB, but they could potentially be what you're referring to. Or what can happen is it'll be like if you had something where it was just, we have no idea what account you're trying to put this into or what class or customer, then it'll show up as red. That way you can just edit these in real time before you post the update. So let's say I was like, oh, I actually want this to be ABX Florida. I can click on that. It'll automatically update this to the correct naming and everything. Just makes it really easy for you when, you know, you're trying to see, okay, is this journal entry going to import correctly or anything like that? And once you do, it's pretty quick. You literally just click paste into Excel and bam, it's all there and ready to go for you, which is very nice. Now, the longer journal entries might take a little bit longer for it to paste in there, but it's still going to be faster by a good margin. Than doing it by hand.
Yeah, this saves a lot of time for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the cool things about this as well is that a lot of people have like a template for a journal entry perhaps that they're using. And they're like, okay, well, you know, I'm just going to, you know, fill in that template in every week. And then I'm going to, once I do that, I'm going to paste it into here. Which brings me to another cool pro feature. I think it's a pro feature. It might be a free feature. I think it's pro. Anyways, that's turned on by default. You see this clear zero value lines right here. This is something that was asked for by some very specific people. And it's like, okay, well, let's say I came into here and I imported a template, right? Well, sometimes when you have a template, you want to keep those zeros in there, but you might not be using that account this particular period. And so what they'll do is they'll bring it in with like everything just the way that it is. And then it'll say clear zero value lines. It'll go through and anything where there is no value for either the debit or the credit, it will go through and just remove those lines for you.
Love it.
Yeah. So just kind of a very nifty feature. Again, all of these features are available for every page if you have the new updated version of the page for QuickBooks Online. I would go back and do it for all the old pages, but I keep getting mixed messages on when everybody's going to be updated to these new pages. So I don't know if it's actually valuable or not. Anyways, that's a separate thing for me to harp on at a later date.
Mark, somebody asked, they have a lot of bills that have over 30 lines. Can you copy and paste bills as well?
Yes. So the way I will put this is, let me see if this file has it. Okay, so if your file has the feedback button up top, then it should be able to do it. And you can see here we have export CSV. Inside of the newer pages, it's actually set up to be below the actual grids. The reason being that sometimes you have item details and category details, and rather than try to like do a whole bunch of like figuring out how we could make the file format work, we just say, okay, if you're pasting from here, you're pasting into category details. If you're pasting from here, you're pasting in item details. So it might be 2 steps for you if you have multiple types of transactions inside of those bills, or multiple types of items. Anyways, inside of those bills, it might be a 2-step process for you, but it is something that is available, again, if you have that feedback button up at the top right corner there.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. I think we have time for one more cool feature. before we let you go. So a cool feature, your favorite feature of RightTool.
My favorite. Okay, I'm going to show you two, only because of the fact there's one that's really just super quick,
Okay.
And that's because of the fact that we're already in this page. So let's say that you have and this would be more useful for existing transaction, but let's say you already had this transaction filled out and you're like, oh, I need to actually add a customer to all of the lines in this transaction. You can come over here and you can click on this little copy down button up top, and then you can click on any basically column in any transaction type. And if I come over here, I'd be like, I'm going to type in 15 or something like that. It will actually copy down and create 15 of that column basically for you. Again, this is a little slower in the new screens than it was in the old screens, but that's not, again, not a thing I'm going to get into. But yes, it will automatically fill that out. And this may work if I just to kind of do one more thing here real quick. And then we're going to let's just do 12. I don't know why I hesitated on that, but we're going to just accept it for a moment. And then one more thing, just to show you kind of like what the original idea behind this was like, let's say you had this class of ABX that you wanted to add. You could just click on that and you could leave it as 0. And if you type 0, it should go through in anywhere where there is already an existing like category or customer. It will add it there to make it so that you don't have to do counting of the numbers to figure out which one you want to do. So
very cool. Okay.
Yeah. But there is one more thing I'll show, which is because of the fact that it's just because it's a new feature. I think it's turned on by default, but maybe I'm crazy and it's not. So we're going to find out, which is, maybe I just need to refresh the page. It might be all there is to it. Oh, right. You got to show display by class. That's why I'm being silly. So let's say you look at a profit and loss report by class, and you have these not specified columns. This is like a brand new feature. So we have like these not specified columns. What you can do is you can go over here and click on this reallocate button. And what it will do is you can come over here and you can be like, okay, for all of these not specified, and you can select which ones if you want to make specific exclusions to this. I'm just not going to make any exclusions to this I'm going to make some just to make it so that the journal entry isn't so super large. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to press next. And then I'm going to be like, oh, I want to, proportionally, split out this not specified amount column to all of these different areas right here. And again, this is a little bit of shortcutting it, but you get the point. So it's doing it by total income right now. And then I click export to CSV. And what it will do is it will literally make a journal entry for you that goes and does every single line of if you had to reallocate and you can do this even from another column that's not specified. It's just that's the main thing we were using it for. So if you ever needed to do something like that where you're like, oh yeah, I don't want anything to be in the not specified column of the classes, then you could do that all in one journal entry. And you can use that copy and paste journal entry function to bring it in. And it's super nice, super easy to do. And it has just a whole bunch of details in there for you. So
that is amazing. Yeah. Wow.
It is. It's very cool. It works with classes, locations, and customers. Customers is going to be a little bit slower just because the report itself is going to have it's going to be slow to run.
Right.
But it can work with that. So yeah, just something that's just really nice and easy, or it's just a nice, cool feature. I'm not saying it's something everybody will use, but it's a cool feature in my opinion.
Yes. Well, anyone who's using classes or locations, I mean, it's definitely needed because you always have those things, right? That's unallocated. So I love that.
I'll have to figure you out. That's okay though. I'll let you live for now. Anyways. Every time I do a thing like this, I always find one thing. I'm like, yeah, okay, fair enough. I need to figure out what's going on there.
See? Look at there. Look at there. Beneficial for you too.
It is.
Awesome. Yay. Well, Mark, we appreciate you being here very, very, very much. If you are live or catching this as a replay and you have questions, you can reach out to Mark. Their YouTube channel is the best place, I assume, Mark, to reach out.
There are two places that are great to reach. Actually, you know what? I'll share my screen again. Why not? There are two places that are great to reach out to me from. There is going to be my email, which is mark@monkbee.com. There's a story behind that, but not something we have to go into right this very moment. And then the second place that is great to reach out to me is we have a Facebook group for RightTool QuickBooks Online User Group. People put stuff in there all the time. It is great because if you put something in there, it puts a little bit of pressure on me to work on it because it's public, and then I get publicly shamed if I don't work on it. So I do not mind at all. I appreciate it. I thrive on pressure. So, make sure to, put something in there for me if you ever have a question.
Love it. Love it. So everybody should be downloading the free version at least after this. Play with it for about 7 days. And if you want to go up to the pro, like Mark said, he doesn't want you to jump right into the pro version right away. And I agree with you, Mark, because there's a lot in the pro version. And a lot of times when we're adding new tech to our stack, it gets overwhelming. So start with the free version, then upgrade to pro. Make sure that you join the Facebook group because I'm sure there you release new features and there's lots and lots of questions. Everybody loves a Facebook group and a forum like that. So again, appreciate that. Anything else you have for us, Mark, before we let you go for the day?
Just one thing that you kind of said that triggered a part of my brain. The nice thing is, because this is a Chrome extension, it is not client facing in any way, shape, or form. If you put this on your computer, your client will not see anything related to RightTool in any way, shape, or form. So there is no training the clients to use it or anything like that, which I know is always a pain in the butt when you're like doing new technology. So you have at least that going for you. You don't have to worry about, is RightTool going to affect how my client's seeing anything? It doesn't. Completely separated. Yeah. Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mark. Really appreciate your help. And thanks everybody for being here. I appreciate it. Everybody have a good day.
Yeah. Thanks everybody.
Bye guys.